somewhere in the world's oceans right now, there's a tiny creature, smaller than your pinky fingernail, that has figured out something no other known animal on Earth has ever managed to do. When it's injured, sick, stressed, or simply old, instead of dying like every other living thing, it can reverse its entire life cycle and become young again. It's not science fiction. It's not a metaphor. This is a real, documented biological phenomenon found in a species of jellyfish called Turritopsis dohrnii, and scientists have been quietly fascinated and genuinely puzzled by it for over 3 decades. Today, we're exploring the only animal on the planet that may be technically immortal. Turritopsis dohrnii is a tiny species of hydrozoan jellyfish, measuring only about 4 to 5 millimeters across when fully grown, roughly the size of a small grain of rice. It's nearly transparent, drifts passively through ocean currents, and looks, frankly, completely unremarkable at first glance, nothing like the dramatic creature its biology actually represents. Like most jellyfish, it begins life as a free-swimming larva, eventually settling onto the ocean floor and developing into a stationary polyp, a small plant-like structure that eventually buds off into the free-swimming, bell-shaped medusa form most people instinctively recognize as a jellyfish in the first place. For nearly every other jellyfish species on Earth, this life cycle moves in one direction only: larva, polyp, medusa, reproduction, and eventually death. It's a straightforward, linear biological journey, the same basic pattern followed by the vast majority of animals across the entire animal kingdom, humans very much included. Turritopsis dohrnii, however, simply refuses to follow this rule under certain circumstances, and figuring out exactly how and why it breaks one of biology's most fundamental, universally accepted patterns has occupied marine biologists for decades, turning this otherwise forgettable speck of an organism into one of the most studied jellyfish on the planet. The discovery happened almost by accident. In 1988, a German marine biology student named Christian Sommer was studying jellyfish near the Italian coast and noticed something strange happening in his laboratory specimens. Instead of dying after reproducing, as expected, some of his jellyfish appeared to be aging backward, reverting to an earlier developmental stage entirely. Sommer initially assumed something had simply gone wrong with his experiment, perhaps contamination or some kind of observational error on his part, but repeated observations confirmed it wasn't a mistake at all. The jellyfish were genuinely transforming back into polyps, the earlier, immature stage of their life cycle, rather than dying as expected. It took several more years of careful research involving multiple research teams across different countries before the scientific community fully accepted and understood the implications of what Sommer had originally stumbled upon: a genuine reversal of biological aging that appeared to have no natural limit on how many times it could repeat. Researchers eventually gave this entire process a formal scientific name: transdifferentiation, the ability of a mature, specialized cell to transform back into a completely different and far more primitive cell type, essentially hitting biological rewind on its own developmental history in a way almost no other known organism appears capable of doing so completely. So how exactly does this biological reversal actually happen? When Turritopsis dohrnii experiences severe stress, physical damage, starvation, or simply old age, rather than dying like virtually every other animal, its cells undergo this remarkable transdifferentiation process, transforming from specialized adult cell types back into more flexible, less specialized forms. The jellyfish's bell-shaped medusa body essentially collapses inward on itself, and the cells that once formed specialized tissues like tentacles, muscles, and digestive structures actually change their fundamental identity, converting into the type of cells found in the much earlier polyp stage of its life cycle, before eventually settling back onto the seafloor as a brand new polyp stage. From that point forward, this newly formed polyp can grow and develop completely normally all over again, eventually budding off new medusa jellyfish, genetically identical to the original, that go on to live their own separate lives entirely, while the original organism has essentially restarted its entire biological clock from scratch. This is fundamentally different from how most animals heal or regenerate. A starfish regrowing a lost arm or a salamander regenerating a tail are impressive feats of regeneration, certainly, but neither of those processes involves an entire matured organism reverting its whole body back to an earlier developmental life stage in this specific way, Crucially, researchers have observed this entire reversal cycle happening repeatedly in laboratory conditions again and again, with no apparent limit on how many times an individual jellyfish lineage can cycle between the medusa and polyp stages, theoretically allowing it to continue indefinitely under the right circumstances, provided it avoids being eaten or otherwise destroyed entirely. Scientists studying the genetic mechanism behind this process have identified several genes that appear unusually active during transdifferentiation, many of them related to DNA repair, stem cell regulation, and the suppression of normal cellular aging pathways that, in most other animals, would simply allow cells to deteriorate and eventually die off naturally over time. A significant 2022 genomic study comparing Turritopsis dohrnii to a closely related non-immortal jellyfish species found notable differences in genes responsible for DNA repair and replication, suggesting this species may have evolved an enhanced ability to repair cellular damage that would otherwise accumulate and eventually trigger normal age-related decline in most other organisms. Researchers also found that Turritopsis dohrnii possesses extra copies of certain genes associated with maintaining stem cell populations throughout its body, potentially giving it a larger, more readily available reservoir of flexible, undifferentiated cells capable of transforming back into earlier developmental forms whenever the right environmental trigger occurs. Despite these genuinely fascinating genetic clues, researchers emphasize that we still don't fully understand every single step of this process, and replicating it artificially in other organisms, particularly in more complex animals like mammals, remains an enormously difficult scientific challenge that is nowhere close to being solved or even fully understood at present. Originally native to the Mediterranean Sea, this tiny jellyfish has now spread to oceans all around the world, including the coastlines of Japan, the United States, Panama, and Spain, making it one of the most successful invasive species nobody had ever really heard about until relatively recently. Researchers believe the primary method of this global spread involves cargo ships, specifically the ballast water that large vessels take on for stability during ocean voyages, accidentally transporting jellyfish polyps attached to ship hulls or suspended within the water itself across enormous distances between continents. Because the polyp stage of its life cycle can survive being transported in this manner, and because Turritopsis dohrnii's biological immortality means individual lineages essentially never have to die from old age, this tiny jellyfish has had a uniquely long runway of opportunity to spread and establish itself in new marine environments worldwide. Naturally, this discovery has sparked enormous scientific interest in what it might eventually teach us about human aging and disease. While nobody seriously expects humans to ever achieve actual biological immortality the same way this jellyfish does, researchers are genuinely interested in the underlying cellular mechanisms involved. Understanding how this jellyfish so effectively repairs cellular damage and maintains active stem cell populations throughout its entire life could potentially offer valuable insights into human conditions involving cellular aging, tissue regeneration, and even certain types of cancer, where cells sometimes inappropriately revert to earlier, less specialized developmental states. Some researchers studying Turritopsis dohrnii have specifically highlighted potential connections to regenerative medicine, hoping that a deeper understanding of natural transdifferentiation might eventually inform new therapeutic approaches for repairing damaged human tissue, though any practical medical applications likely remain many years, if not decades, away from genuine clinical reality. Funding for this specific area of research has historically been quite limited, given the jellyfish's tiny size and the genuine technical difficulty involved in studying it, though interest has grown considerably in recent years as genomic sequencing technology has become significantly more affordable, accessible, and powerful for smaller, specialized research teams. So somewhere out in the world's oceans right now, there are jellyfish lineages that have potentially been cycling between youth and maturity for an unknown number of years, quietly avoiding the one biological certainty that every other living thing on this planet eventually has to face. Tis a genuinely humbling reminder that even after centuries of careful biological study, the natural world still holds on to secrets capable of completely rewriting what we thought we understood about life, aging, and death itself. If this fascinated you, subscribe, because we'll be back next time with another deep dive into the strange and wonderful corners of science.